Now it is Alberta Innovates, but it's really important that there be sort of a semi-permeable membrane surrounding the province so that the research that's done here goes out to the rest of the world, but in turn, what we do here is influenced by what's learned in the rest of the world. And I would say that Art Froehlich knows what that's about. He's a businessman, he was originally a farmer, he's traveled all around the world, he's seen projects that use the kinds of information that we generate here. He also has brought back information to here that's been generated elsewhere. And he's completely unbiased about AI bio. I was told to say that because he is, of course, chairman of the board. Please welcome Art Froehlich.
My God, this is a big audience. You know, they say public speaking is one of the most traumatic things one ever goes through, and even though I've done probably countless of presentations over my career, I still am not used to this, and I don't sleep at night before, and I feel physically ill. And they say I always envision the audience being naked and everything will be wonderful. Jack, it ain't working. So, but it is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here this morning to represent the board and the team at AI Bio, who over the last, I guess we've been in existence now a little over 3 years, Stan, who in the last 3.5 years, I think, have carved out a very, very significant piece of some pretty exciting innovation in the ag, food, and forestry area. So on behalf of the team, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. You are going to see a glimpse today of some pretty exciting work that we are doing. And I emphasize the word some of the exciting work we're doing. I know that I feel for the presenters. We're going to have to get them to talk about a lifetime of passion and dreams and desires and hard work and get that condensed in a few minutes. And I think they've worked very hard on doing that. But there's so much that isn't here today that you won't hear about. And there's so much more that the people that are going to present today that is behind what they do that you want to get a chance to hear about. So I ask you to take the opportunity to ask as many questions as you can. You know, it's being an agriculturalist is what I am. I'm a business owner. I have business interests throughout the world. And every time I come back to Alberta from one of my globe trottings, I come back here and I say, my God, we have it all here. We just have everything here. Why is it we just can't get it together and take advantage of that everything we have here? And I'm going to try to make a few comments around that a little later on. Being an agronomist, being an agriculturalist, my world, and I guess I learned this very early on the farm from a German farming father, that the world revolves around that top meter of soil. That's where life begins. It's what gives us the quality of life and the productivity that we have in this province. I realize that many kilometers down from that, we're creating enormous wealth, and that is wonderful. But sometimes I think we forget that top meter of soil provides us with absolutely everything that we have and have come to love in this province: the forests, the streams, the fish, the farming, the ranches, the food that we have. And I think sometimes we have to step back just a little bit and have a look at this a little more holistically. I've had the great opportunity of doing a lot of developmental projects around the world, from Malawi, Rwanda, Mozambique, Dominican Republic, Peru, just launching one in Ghana now. And it's amazing when the soil quality disappears, when the water disappears, nothing else matters. It's just that simple. And I think sometimes we tend to get so focused on the details that we forget about this very holistic thing that we've got here. And I think Canada, by and large, has done an outstanding job, Alberta, an outstanding job, in recognizing the value of soil, and I hope we don't lose that. So I just wanted to make that comment as a farmer. We have the opportunity in the agriculture, forest, and food industries to create enormous wealth in this province, but we're going to have to do it in a little different ways. We're being asked to do things now, and the opportunities are almost unbelievable. They're almost overwhelming. We are going to have new and novel food, healthy food, that's going to come from our farms and our fields. We're going to have a vast array of products in the chemical manufacturing industry that are going to be generated in a sustainable way from our forests and fields. We're going to have greater and much more efficient use of nutrients and water in what we produce. I think when I stood here last year, on our particular farms in Saskatchewan, we have doubled our production in the last 20 years, and we have half the inputs we used 20 years ago in terms of pounds or kilos, and that progress is just going to continue. Climate change. It's hard for us to recognize climate change here because we just tend to go into our house when it's a little too cold or a little too hot and turn the air conditioning on. Lots of the parts of the world I go to, climate change is causing very significant, and I don't know what the reasons are. I'm not a scientist. As a matter of fact, I was the world's worst university student. I was worse than you, Jay. My deans would be turning over in their graves today if they saw me standing up here talking to an audience like this. So I've had, as I say, the great privilege to travel all over the world and see what's going on there. And I think when I come back, as I say, come back to Alberta and I see we've got it all. We've got this incredible, we've got the most productive farmers and foresters in the world, the most innovative, the most visionary. We've got academic institutions here and institutes here that rival anything I've seen elsewhere in the world, contrary to what we perhaps tend to hear. We've got an energy industry here, an oil and gas industry, that has the best engineers and production people and manufacturing people and geologists in the world, and the interface between agriculture and forestry and the energy industry I don't think is ever recognized. And once we can harness that interface between the two and take advantage of our expertise, agriculture and forestry have the keys to solve a lot of the issues that we are facing right now in the energy industry in terms of soil and water and reclamation and a number of those things. And I think we have to work, we have to spend a lot more time getting out of our silos and working together. Before I close, just want to thank the speakers for agreeing to speak today. I know we put you under enormous pressure to talk for just a few minutes on topics that I said are very passionate about you. And in just closing, I want to tell you just a little bit of a story. I've had the great privilege of starting and running a number of successful businesses. But probably one of the real treats that I had was about 3 weeks ago, actually, the day of the Boston bombing. I was in New York City as a guest of the Clinton Foundation to attend President Clinton's annual briefing. And I spent the day with President Clinton and Secretary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton and about 70 other people from around the world. And we had wonderful conversations. And I was fortunate to have a number of private one-on-one conversations with President Clinton, who I'd never met before in my life. And some of the things we talked about were food safety, which we'll talk about today, food security, which I think is relevant to a lot of the world outside of us, and food sovereignty, which is now an incoming new theory that's I think all of us have to think a little bit more about. But at the end of the day, after we had our dinner with about 50 of us, President Clinton came up to me and says, "How's my farmer friend from Canada?" And it was easy for him to remember because I was the only one there from Canada, so that was the only farmer there. And I said, I'm just great, but I said, I'm totally overwhelmed, and this has almost been a surreal experience. Because when I look at the group of people here, you would recognize most of them, from the movies, from fashion industry, ambassadors, five-star generals. And I said, I'm just a farmer from Saskatchewan, and I now live in Alberta. I just feel out of place here. And he said, no. And he punched me in the chest, and he said, no. You are exactly the kind of person we have here. We need more farmers to take the world where it has to go. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, every successful democracy in the world has been built on the basis of a strong resource, agricultural, food, and forestry industry, where we've preserved the soil and we've had a strong food base. If you don't have that, you have no chance of having successful democracies. And he said, farmers represent what's good in this world. I've never been more proud to be a farmer in my life. And I think one of the things, and he also made some wonderful comments about Canada and how we have to begin punching well above our weight. And I think Alberta has the opportunity here to lead with that first punch and, if need be, drag the rest of Canada along. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoy the day. I know you will. It's an honor to be here representing AI Bio, and I look forward to meeting all of you over the course of the morning. Thank you.
One of the great privileges I have in emceeing this is that I get to ask speakers a question when they're finished.
Not such a great privilege for me, but
And so at the risk of making Art sick to his stomach by still being up here talking to you, you know, so you mentioned farming, and President Clinton said those things to you about the importance of farmers. And I've met people in this province who say farmers are among the most creative people. And maybe as a Saskatchewan farmer, you could give us your thoughts on the importance, because I've met so many people in different walks of life in this province, all of whom grew up on a farm and will attribute their creative instincts to that background.
boy, that's a really good question. And again, my good friend and board member Paul Schmidt is sitting out there. He's a farm kid from Saskatchewan as well. I know where you are, Paul. You've disappeared. There you are. You know, it's interesting. I think that's a good question. I wish I had a good answer.
Maybe
That's
I should have
probably
told you I was going to ask
Yeah,
that.
you should have told me you were going to ask that. No, I think one of the reasons that farmers are very creative is because we have to. We just simply have to. By and large, farmers in Canada, in Alberta, for most of the time agriculture was done here, didn't receive a lot of support from governments, from industry. We always say we buy retail and sell wholesale. We work on very slim margins. You have to be incredibly efficient. But one of the things that I think, my father-in-law, who is also a very successful farmer and long since passed away, I asked him one time, I said, what was the biggest impact that you saw in your 75 or 80 years being involved in agriculture? And he thought not more than a second or two, and he said, hydraulics. And I thought, and I would have never guessed hydraulics. He said, when we had hydraulics, it changed how we could farm. We could farm bigger, we could farm better, we could farm faster, we could farm in ways that we could never do before. So, and it's some of the things. GPS is a good example. We would never consider running a piece of equipment over a piece of land right now without GPS on our equipment. It just, and I can remember, and Paul probably remembers it too, 30 years ago, standing in a field with this driverless tractor, which we thought was just never going to make it. Now it's a part of our life. But I think farmers genuinely have to be innovative. That's how they succeed. If not, you don't succeed, and there's nobody there to prop you up. So I think we've learned from our fathers very well.